is Rhea, and this is Just the Who of Us, where we talk about a range of topics including life events, current events, spirituality, entertainment, family relationships, as well as answering listener questions and more. It's been a while, but today we are back with Beast Mode Bart in person to talk about his newest album. And for those of you who aren't familiar, to give you a little bit of background and catch up. It's been a couple years, right? So our last interview was done via Zoom. Will just happened to what do you go by? I just called you Will.
Yeah, I mean I go by Will. I know in high school I went by Bart because it kind of comes from my rapper name. We did an interview a couple years ago, like through Zoom. We just talked about doing an interview. And I think it was actually Joker that brought up the idea that it'd be really cool to have that done. So we did that, and then I know in previous talks we've kind of discussed about doing a follow-up interview, and so now that's what we're here doing in person. I came down for the weekend to just kind of hang out with the family, and it's been a good vacation, and hopefully this is a good interview. So
yeah, definitely. All right, well, let's get to it. So for those of you for the listeners who aren't familiar, tell us a little bit about you as far as your background. What kind of got you into music per se? What led to this kind of career journey? Where did it all start?
So I remember talking about in the previous interview, just like it started with middle school. It was something that, I gravitated towards. I kind of got into it with band class, doing instruments with like the trumpet. And then I, started actually listening to music. And I was like, I thought about sort of making my own. And I always had sort of a spark to do that. And so I just tried it out. And I remember just being in my room, trying it out and having fun with it. And I remember it was something that was kind of a little bit comical, a little bit of a joke in middle school. Like, oh, I was the funny guy because I was the rapper. But it's since then it's taken a lot more of a serious angle, and it's sort of turned into something that's really been my passion. And I think it's something that I've always been born with. But I think in middle school and when you're growing up, you just learn about things that you're passionate about and things that you want to pursue after. And that was something that definitely developed in me as something that, I wanted to pursue after. I felt like my parents, or especially my mom, because my mom is a singer, it was something that I kind of learned from her because, just watching her perform live and just kind of seeing what she does sort of gave me some inspiration too, because I've done a few live performances myself ever since we did the first interview.
Really?
Yeah. So
okay.
I had they were all in Evansville, that's where I'm from, is Evansville, Indiana. And so they were kind of local to the area. And of course, there were some small shows that I did. But it's always a start. And I do have them on my Instagram. So if you guys want to check out my Instagram, I'm sure she'll put it in there, but it's at Hero from Eville. So Hero from E-VILLE. And you can find me on there. And I posted, some of the highlight clips of the concerts that I've done. You'll see some other videos too. I've started really get into doing reels and just making more content for people to watch and especially for new people, because that's of course what I'm trying to do is get more people to listen to the music. And I think ultimately what I've learned from doing it is that it's it's cool to see people listening to it, and it's cool to see the numbers and whatnot. But I think the coolest part for me is just seeing how it impacts people in a good way, and how people really feel uplifted from it. And that's always been the coolest part for me, is just the way that I can connect with people just through music, through with people that I've never met before. They're able to listen to it and they can understand the message that I try to put out there. And that's always been the coolest part for me. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm sure we'll have more questions to discuss.
So one of the things that I appreciate, as a parent, is that your music is really something that everybody can listen to. I'm older, so like I'm in the car and I hear certain things. If it has sex in it, if it has, certain words, I'm not letting my kids listen to it. My little kid, I guess, I'm particular even with my daughters and stuff. But your music, everybody can listen to, and someone can relate to in some kind of way, because you talk about different things. So that's one thing that I liked about it, that I appreciate about it. Pull up your Instagram.
Okay,
Um,
there you go.
okay. So, since the last time you were here, and of course I've listened to your album, but since you were here last time, well, not here, but since last time we talked, your music has kind of evolved a little bit. Um, Tell us kind of what the inspiration for the evolution of your music. When you first start out with art and journal,
Mhm.
you start out, you have kind of a baseline for your interests, your preference, the things that you want people to hear. And of course, as you go through, you kind of build a following. Obviously you're going through different things in your life and your music changes a little bit, not a lot. Um, tell us tell us about your current album and what the inspiration for that is. Because I've heard it and
Yeah.
and I kind of, but
Yeah,
people who maybe they're just gonna start following you, they might just listen to the current. People who are really into music, they're gonna kind of go back and they're gonna see that kind of evolution to, tell me a little bit about kind of the transition from the beginning to now in your musical focus.
for sure. So, yeah, with this newest project that I guys called Recovery. It's on Apple Music, Spotify. You can find it on Amazon Music too. And it's something that it was just kind of there. You go, there it is. So yeah, and I was telling her earlier that if you look at it, I actually made the picture for it myself. Yeah, you can see that a little bit. Yeah. So yeah, does it look like me? But yeah, so I made the picture, and that's something about me too is the more independent I can be, I always prefer that, just because, especially with like my creative direction, I like to have all of that sort of in control, and I want to just make sure that everything that I'm doing, everything that I'm making is kind of from my vision, because I feel like if it's from someone else, someone else might be able to understand what you're thinking, but it's all about what you have, that's inside of your mind and kind of what you think of, and that's always what I believe about with art is that it's got to be genuine to the person.
Yeah.
But with this project in general, it was something that I started with like one song that I made, and it's actually the first song called "Messed Up," and I dropped it as a single. And then I was like, I was listening to it more, and I was thinking, I want this to kind of be the lead single to it, before I drop it, because what it did for me is that I made that song, and then I was thinking in my head, I can sort of take this into a direction where I can sort of make a lot more songs based on that one, and I can sort of kind of develop more into it or go deeper. And so that's really what I was thinking with it. I was sort of going back into my younger element with it, because back when I was like in high school, I want to say like freshman or sophomore year, I made a lot of songs that were kind of talking about just like my past relationships and the kind of the hard times that I went through. And so I felt like I wanted to kind of bring back that element a little bit, with this one. And overall, like I'm really happy with it. I think that it's honestly like, for me, because I always think my projects are good and I always like what I put out. But I think this is like when I made it and it was complete and I was listening to it, I was like, wow, like this is something that I'm really proud of. And so like, I was, of course listening to it, and I think, when other people listen to it, they'll be able to relate. But it's really just like, it's the main thing for me too is I like to tell stories. I'm a storyteller. So Sometimes like I'll be singing and then other times I'll be rapping too. But either way, I like to just sort of convey my message in different ways. But going back to what Rhea was saying, I always try to keep my music clean, like on purpose. Like not so much like, of course, I want everyone to be able to listen to it, but also like I've always been in the belief that I try to convey my message in a way that's sort of with a higher intellect and maybe at a higher level than just like using, because everyone can cuss, everyone can use like
Yeah.
words like that to kind of convey their message, but I like to do it in a way that's just like more creative and kind of, I think that's something that stands out with me too, is that it's something that everyone can listen to, and also like I do call myself a Christian, and I am a firm believer in that. So that's also part of it too. So when you listen to my music, you might hear some like Christian themes to it, or sort of Christian messages, and that's something that I like to put in, just because my music is all about just expressing myself as a person, and also just talking about my struggles, but also like kind of the highs and lows, just depending on what the theme of the album is. And that's just that's really my whole like creative process and my mindset. And so I hope that when you listen to it, that you can sort of feel the energy that I was putting into it, because I think that it turned out really well. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, like I said, I can tell in this one there was some growth,
Hmm.
musically, but also in your personal life. But I have a little bit more of an insight than just the album,
Yeah.
about your life, but it portrayed your growth in a positive way. I want to ask you as an artist, how do you measure your success? Because I know, your answer is probably going to be a little bit different than somebody who's like made millions of dollars.
Mhm.
They've traveled, they've done all these things. You have accomplished a lot in a short period of time. And so, how do you measure your personal success in relation to your music?
So I'd say, going back to what I was saying earlier, like the biggest thing I would say with just measuring my success is just seeing how it impacts other people and how it really affects other people too, because I'll get messages of, people will say, hey, I heard your newest song, or I heard like your newest album, and it really made me feel a certain type of way, in a good way,
Yeah.
and so, that's definitely number one. And then I'd say like past that, of course, like just being able to have live shows. I haven't done a concert in a while, but if anyone's watching this and they're like a promoter or anything, I would definitely be interested in doing that. But and then of course, like of course, I do pay attention to like the streams and seeing if people, what they're listening to, kind of what songs people are liking the most. But yeah, I definitely think that it's easy to look at famous rappers and kind of look at the money and just like the cars they have and different stuff like that, and that's stuff that attracts people to the music. But I think what really separates people from like just making music and then people that are like genuine artists is like if you stick with it, and you because like there's going to be a while where like you might not have that success, or you might not have like that fortune and fame,
Right.
so I think for me, like it's always just been something that I've always stuck with. I think I mentioned it in the previous interview, but at this point, this is my third year doing it, like really doing it seriously, and I'd say like from the time I started to like now, I've definitely just like I feel like it's helped me grow a lot as a person, and it's just kind of taught me some lessons, and like there's just stuff that I've learned about just making music, but also like stuff that I've learned in my personal life, uh, just like through making it and whatnot. And I think that's probably the thing that I'm most thankful for, just with this journey, is that it's just helped me grow as a person, and like it's really just like I said, it's really turned into something that I'm passionate about, and it's always going to be something that I stick with regardless of how big I get, or how small I am. It's always going to be something that sticks with me, because it's almost like at this point, even if I wanted to stop, I can't, so that's almost, and
From far, yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like and I think I see that with like you see that with sports too, like people that plays, basketball or football their whole life, and
Yeah.
it ends up turning into like their long-term career, because
Yeah.
it's something that they think about all day long. And I think that's something that has kind of stuck with me. It's something that I'm always thinking about. Whenever of course, I drop stuff, and then I'm thinking about, kind of taking it to the next level, or thinking about, what kind of direction do I want to go into next, and that's probably just the biggest thing for me is just seeing how it impacts other people. So yeah.
Yeah. Do you plan to stay kind of like how you are now? So like, you're more wholesome in the sense of like you don't curse and
Mhm.
you're careful about what you talk about and things like that. Because a lot of not a lot, but we have people come out and they have this certain persona in the beginning
Mhm.
and then they kind of change as life changes.
Yeah.
How do you plan on like staying true to yourself and who you are as an artist as you get older and life gets more stressful and
Yeah.
you become more famous and stuff like
Yeah.
that? How do you think as a person that you would keep yourself grounded and stay true to your persona?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing is that, my mom, growing up, my mom always told me that I was hard headed and I was always stubborn. So I think that sort of helps me stay true to myself is that, at the end of the day, I know who I want to be and I know like kind of the person that I want to express to other people.
Yeah.
So that's definitely number one. And, also the thing that I go back to, because so something a little bit about me that I haven't shared is that I do serve and volunteer at my church locally. So I'm, of course, a part of the worship ministry because I'm actually a drummer. So I play the drums too, and I've that's something that has always been really fun for me. So there's that, but also I'm a small group leader. So I have like a group of middle schoolers that I sort of volunteer and lead the way for. So that's always something that I go back to as well. Is like even though I don't got like my own kids yet, I still have a group of kids that
Yeah.
sort of count on me
Right.
a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's another thing too that I think about. Is whatever I teach them and whatever I say to them, I want to live that. So that it's kind of sort of easier to lead because then I can lead by example.
Yeah.
And it's so that's definitely another thing too. And regardless of whatever like direction I go into or like whatever, sort of path of life I'm in, I'm always going to try to express it in a way that's like genuine to me. So, some, albums that I make might be, have a darker theme than others. But regardless of like whatever the theme is, it's always going to be expressed in a way that's genuine to me. Because like I said, I think that's something that stands out as well to other people. So, and so that's pretty much the main thing that I would say is that, just I lead by example. And in order to do that, I got to just live by what I say and what I teach, younger people. And that's something I've always done too, is like I've learned like as I got older that I really do have like a big heart for the youth and
Yeah.
like, just young people and especially like young men too, because I know for me, like middle school was kind of a rough period of time for me. And then high school was better, but of course it had its highs and lows too.
Right.
And something that I always thought about is, as where I'm at now is, I never really had like a mentor besides like my parents. I never had like a big brother because in the family, I'm the oldest,
Yeah.
so I'm the one that's got to lead my two sisters, but I never really had like a big brother in a way. So if I could be that big brother type of person for these like kids that I'm leading, then that's something that means a lot to me. And that's something I'll always be grateful for. It's just having that opportunity. So that'd be my answer to that.
Great answer. So I think you answered this in the first interview, but for those who didn't listen to it, who is or are your biggest musical
Yeah.
influence or influences?
Yeah. So in the first interview, I think I don't know exactly who I mentioned because it was a few years ago.
I mean,
So
it might have changed.
yeah, it might have changed. Yeah. But I think when I was younger, I would sort of listen to like Travis Scott was someone I listened to a lot. just because of like how like creative he is with his music and what he does. Like, and then like I even have like influences outside of rap too. But like NF is an influence too. I'm sure people hear that a lot, just because like, I grew up listening to him, and he was someone that he was kind of the first rapper I saw that, you know, didn't cuss in his songs, and it was still stuff that I could relate to.
Good, like good music.
Yeah. So that was definitely Lecrae is like another one of those rappers, and I really like his stuff. And just like other secular rappers, I mean, I could go like there's a whole list I can go on and on, but I'd say like outside of other genres, like rock, there's a lot of rock bands that I like to listen to. And sort of listening to those bands kind of helps me, because a lot of the times like that music is like it's loud, and a lot of people get turned off by that, but it's like really like passionate, and deep. So that's something that I sort of carry into, or at least I try to with my music, is having that same type of energy, but still have it in a way that's like true to the genre.
Yeah.
So, so I'd say those are my biggest influences. Like my favorite rock bands would be like Breaking Benjamin, and then like Skillet a little bit, and there's like a whole ton of others, but those are like the first two that I can think of. But yeah, so I'd say like there's a lot of different influences that I have, and anytime, because I do like to sort of listen to rappers and other artists that haven't gotten like big or mainstream yet. And so anytime I listen to an artist for the first time and I'm like exposed to them a little bit, I try to like, kind of learn, how they make music, or learn sort of something from their character, and sort of draw inspiration from that too. So I definitely like listening to just different artists, and that's another thing I didn't mention earlier, is like with my music, and when I'm thinking about what I want to do next, is I sometimes try to experiment too, because when I experiment, I feel like I can learn new things, and I'll either make a song and I'll be like, man, that was like really good. I might want to include that, and then there's other times where it might not be so good, but at the end of the day, I'm experimenting. So, anytime you experiment, it's not always guaranteed to be something that you might want to keep, but, that's always something I try to do as well. Because I think, people always say variety is the spice of life. So that's always something I try to include with myself, and not just like in music, just in life in general,
Yeah.
always got to have some variety, so that'd be my answer to that.
Okay. And I guess that kind of leads me to another question. So you've kind of talked about how your music impacts others, and kind of how you want it to impact others. But how do you think, in your personal opinion, art in general, not necessarily music, but music to impact society?
Yeah. So I'd say with art in general, people always say that there's 1,000 words in the picture, or I think something like that.
Yeah.
And so we look at things, and I'm a big history guy too. Like in high school, I took like AP World History and all that. So because I was kind of a nerd with history, but I think there's like history in the art too, like in different things that you see. And I think that of course, not just like with myself, but I think art can evolve, as like just as a whole, because what we saw, or what we can look at, like as far as like old paintings, is different from like art that we see now. And I think the same thing about music too. Stuff you listen to that was made like back in the 80s and 90s, is completely different from what it is now.
Right. Right.
So I think just as a society, I think that it can help people sort of get through what they're going through. I think it can help us go through our challenges in life. And I think that it's something that is powerful in our society, because we can either like use it to elevate ourselves, or we can use it to drag other people down, and it ultimately depends on what we use it for. And so I think that, there's different things that we can learn from it, and different, lessons to be learned. And so I think as society too, like there's of course the entertainment aspect, so you got, you'll have thousands of people, sometimes millions of people that will go to like different concerts. And it's, I think it can also be something that unites people in a good way. And that's also a big thing, is just like it can bring other people together regardless of, just like race or gender, or, wherever we come from, it can always bring people together. So I think that's also like a very cool part of it. And even like with different fan bases, they can always come together too. When you have like those big tours where there's like all different types of, like Rolling Loud, where there's like all different types of rappers, different fan bases, might be gratified or gravitate towards different rappers, but they can always come together, for, the big show, So I think that's probably the biggest thing, is just like how it unites people, but it can also divide people too,
Right.
depending on how we use it. So that'd be my answer.
Yeah.
So
Nice.
yeah.
How does where you're from impact your music?
So the biggest thing that I always get with it says your computer is low.
So how does where you're from impact your music?
So I think the first thing is people, will hear me talk and they automatically think I'm from the South, because I do have a bit of an accent to it myself, But I think the biggest thing is that I'm from a city that a lot of people aren't really familiar with, unless it's like someone that's also from Evansville,
Yeah.
But that's that's something that I think about is, you got rappers that are from, these big cities like LA or Atlanta, just anywhere in California, and then, New York too. And then you got me that's from the city that, some people might not recognize or think about. But, I think that ultimately it's good to first like remember where you're from, remember where you came from. And then also, I think that I can sort of use it to my advantage, because since a lot of people don't know about, where I'm from, people aren't going to have any like stereotypes towards me, because you might, think like, oh, he's from LA, so he's, this or that,
Right.
but
That's
if,
true.
so like for me, I can sort of set the tone a little bit, or sort of sort of define people from my city, which is kind of cool and also a little bit scary at the same time,
Right.
because I don't want people to get the wrong image and then think like, oh, people in Evansville are just crazy, But I definitely think that it's something that I take pride into a little bit, because I'm from somewhere that a lot of people aren't going to know about. So I'm sort of introducing a new city, or to a lot of people. But yeah, I mean, I just think that ultimately, I don't think it matters where you're from, or it should matter, because anyone can pursue their dreams, as long as they got the, as long as they got the determination and they got the right tools, and, just the right people around them, because it's always important to have a good circle of people. You don't want anyone that's going to bring you down, or anyone that's going to be negative towards you,
Right.
So as long as you got the right supporters, I think that, whatever God wants you to do, or whatever you choose to do, you can definitely do that, if you believe in yourself, So that's sort of the attitude that I've always, brought with myself, is that, well, as long as I believe in myself, and I got the right people around me, then, you know, it it shouldn't affect, or it shouldn't matter, where I'm from,
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's just the only challenge with it is that, of course, since it's not as big as like New York or LA, there might not be as many opportunities to like get known.
Right.
The music scene might not be as big. But at the same time, I think it's cool with today, with Instagram and Facebook and Snap and all that, you can sort of make a platform for yourself, and you can still like connect with people from all across the country, and
Yeah.
even outside of the US too, So I think that's something I'm thankful for with social media. I know a lot of people tend to complain about, social media and the bad stuff about it, but I think that's one of the cool things about it,
Yeah.
is that I can connect with people that, are on the other side of the country, or maybe just outside the US, and they hear my song or whatever. And then, they find my Instagram and we start talking from there, So, that's sort of something that I think about too. So really my city hasn't really, like, the fact that I'm from Evansville doesn't really affect me in a way, because most of what I do, like most of my marketing and whatnot, is, on Instagram.
Yeah.
And if you got Instagram, then, there's a way to find me, you know what I mean?
Right.
So that'd be, what I'd say, with
Okay.
where I'm from.
If you could collaborate with someone from another genre, what would that genre be?
Um, I haven't really thought about that, so that's a good question. But I'd say off the top of my head, like outside of rap, I know that more recently there's been a lot of rappers that have sort of collabed with country artists.
Yeah,
You know, like most recently, I've seen that song with Morgan
well,
Wallen and
I
Post Malone.
love that song.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a
Yeah,
really good song, you know.
yeah.
So
Their voices that so lovely.
yeah, yeah. So, so I mean, I wouldn't mind doing a country song, if I was able to fit the vibe of it, because
Yeah,
it's got to be something that I can match with and
right.
something that like the chemistry is there. It's got to be something that, can sort of mesh well together with. So, I'd say that'd probably be my answer would be country. But I'd say rock too. I mean, rock would be pretty cool.
Yeah,
I know that like there's been sort of in the past, like, I know Limp Bizkit comes to mind, like as far as like rappers that have done
right.
rock.
Yeah,
But so I think that's been done before. So I feel like that'd be something that could work well too. And then as far as like other genres go, I mean, really, as long as they can mesh well with, what my voice and kind of what I bring to the table, then, shoot, I'll do it.
yeah.
So that's always kind of been my attitude with it.
Um, how do your other interests impact your music?
So I'd say like, you mean just like in music or life in general?
Just in life in general, just your other interests outside of music. How do those interests impact your music?
So, I'd say a lot of my music is about just like what I do, uh, just about my life and, different things that I go through and also like different stories that I have. And that's something that I always try to do too, is like, I don't really try to, sometimes I'll be, telling a story, but a lot of times, I think it's easy to sort of put on a facade or a persona that might not be genuine. But I think the more true or the more genuine I can be, the better with my music. So I'd say like, I mean, the biggest thing that I do outside of music is I like to play video games. And that's kind of how I met Joker,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. And then, of course, I like the gym too. But I'd say the biggest thing outside of music that has affected my music has been just like my personal beliefs. So different things that I go through mentally and spiritually, different things that I've sort of grown up with. That's definitely been the biggest thing that's impacted my music, and I think in a good way too, because I think that uh, there's a lot there's always something that you can story tell if you go through it or any event that you go through, you can always like
Yeah.
tell a story about it. So there's definitely a lot that I went through, like I said, in my younger years. I mean, I know I'm still pretty young, but just like when I was in middle school and high school, there was definitely stuff that I went through that that I like to talk about, just so that I think it's good for me to sort of tell other people about it, but it's also I know it helps other people too that are listening to it. So I'd say that's probably been the biggest thing, is just like my personal beliefs, but also like with gaming too, because I might make a gaming reference or whatever, and I do that just because I'm kind of a nerd with gaming. So, but I think it's okay to be a nerd. I think it's cool. I don't have a problem with it. But and I'm wearing a Frieza shirt right now, so I do like my fair amount of anime too. And I that's always something I've liked about anime, is that you watch anime or you watch like a show and you can sort of learn something from that too. And that's in itself is a form of art, I think,
Yeah,
just
yeah, definitely.
like theater in general. So yeah, I'd say that'd be probably the main things that impact my music for sure.
Okay. And this is another question, but this is also kind of for my benefit as well. So, when I'm doing podcasting, or especially like when I started writing. So my third book I put out was my autobiography. And there was kind of a period where I was like, why does anybody care about what I have?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, if people don't know me, why are they gonna care what I have to say?
yeah,
Um, and so you have, as a artist of any form, you have these kind of like mental blocks sometimes, whether it might be your own self-doubt or like if I have too many things going on, like if you are following the podcast, y'all know I dropped the podcast down to once a month just because I'm so busy.
Mhm.
You know, it sometimes it's hard to kind of balance certain things or like get back into certain things. Like I haven't recorded in a while because luckily I had like episodes recorded ahead, but it's been a minute since I recorded. And it, sometimes now I'm like, oh, I missed this, But so how, I guess, how do you get over like these mental blocks of whether it might be, okay, well, I don't necessarily have the confidence right now, or, especially like in the beginning, or like who's really going to want to hear what I have to say, or whether it's like I'm really busy and it's hard to focus on this with everything else going on. How do you kind of like find that motivation to get through those blocks?
Yeah. Well, I definitely think, I think as a person, I definitely feel like I'm a motivated individual, and I try to use that in a way to motivate other people. And I have done that in the past before, just like with social media and whatnot. But as far as like mental blocks and sort of, self-doubt and all that, I've definitely dealt with that in the past. I am someone that can have anxiety sometimes, and I think it's natural to have that as a person. I think over time in society, I like that we've become more aware of it, and that there's been people that have spoken more out about it, because I think there was a time where people would try to hide it or try
Right.
to, kind of sweep it under the rug. But I've always thought that if we address issues head on, then that's kind of how we solve our problems. But as far as like getting over like a mental block, what I've always tried to do is just like when I'm ever anxious about making a song, or I might think, oh, I don't know if people are going to care about this, or people are, really going to like this or not. I always just like tell myself that, it's going to be okay. You know, it's I always try to push myself to at least finish the song, even if I never release it or never do anything with it. I always try to just at least finish it. And I was sometimes like it's funny because sometimes like I'll make a song and it only takes like 10 minutes to make it.
Yeah.
And then there's
Yeah.
other times where I'll spend like 3 or 4 hours, just doing like one song. And it's and like I don't even pay attention to the time. I'll
Mhm.
start at like 11 and then I'll look at my phone and it's like 2 o'clock by the time I finish. And
Yeah.
and it's always and I always do it like on my off day too, because I'm
Right.
I'm always busy with my job, because I do have a full-time job. Just because I don't have enough like a big enough following that I can do it full time yet.
Right.
Hopefully
Yes.
that's something that I can do as a career. But of course, like I said, you always got to start somewhere. But yeah, really, I just always think that I think with music, the cool thing about it is that you can always try new things, and I don't think I think everyone's going to have haters. You're always going to have people that doubt you, but I think doubting yourself or having self doubt is what can really sort of bring people down. Because like with me, I know personally, I always got people that have doubted me in the past, or people that may not believe in what I'm believing in. But at the end of the day, I've always just kind of, like I said, as a person, I try to be as independent as possible. And so knowing that, I understand that, if people don't like it, or people don't understand it, if it's something that, sort of helps me with what I'm going through, or if it's something that, I really enjoy, then I'm just going to stick with it and I'm going to continue doing it.
Yeah.
And so that's something that kind of, and there's also a thing called writer's block where like you're writing something and then like you're all of a sudden you stop
Yeah.
and you're like, I don't know what to write,
Yes.
and sometimes like in order to handle that, I just have to like I'll literally like just sit there and like stare at my computer for like 5 minutes, because I'll just like I'll be like, well, eventually I'm gonna think of something.
Right.
It's just right now I can't think of anything.
Yeah.
But ultimately what I try to go back to, and this is something that I just like learned just like through school and like English class, because I used to take AP English, and so like in that class you had to write a 5-page essay like every day,
Mhm.
and that was just part of it. Like that's just what we did.
Yeah.
So that will like I think doing that really like challenged me because they were like sometimes they were timed essays too. So even if like you didn't know what you were talking about, I just like I got in the mindset that I had to write something down,
Right.
because I'd rather write something down and have a full essay than, not have a full essay and then it like counts against me, So that's something too that I've sort of applied to my music is just like, even if like the first stage of it isn't what I want it to be, I can always go back and make changes and I can always go back and sort of make a second version of it because I notice like, sometimes with like an artist, they'll put out a song that's like unreleased
Yeah.
and it'll be something like completely different than what the actual version is, and so that's something I think about too is like, well, just because right now it's not what I want it to be, that doesn't mean I can, it won't be that way in the future, so I think that's another thing. Another cool thing about music is that you can always make changes and tweaks, and you can always like whether it's with the writing or like the production too,
Yeah.
like maybe something doesn't sound uh, as clear as something else, because that's something I do too. Is I actually mix and master like all of my music by myself, So like the beats, I'll get from other people, but then as far as like the actual recording and like mixing everything together, that's all on me, So and you can tell, too, if you go back to my old music and you listen to it now, there's probably a big difference,
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's the same with podcasts.
yeah,
Like, I went back and because a few months ago I was just kind of re-releasing certain
Yeah.
episodes, and I was looking at my first few episodes and I was like, man,
Yeah.
this is really different now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's something that I think about too. It's like, just it can always be different. We can always go back and make changes. So
Yeah.
I'd say that that'd probably be how I overcome, just the mental blocks. And I've definitely dealt with that in the past. And
Yeah.
I'd say that in the beginning it was definitely more challenging than it is now. Like in the beginning I had a lot of writer's blocks just because I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do and I didn't exactly understand my vision fully.
Yeah.
But now, like, I feel like I've gotten a lot more comfortable with myself. And that is another thing too, is like you got to be comfortable with yourself.
Right.
You gotta be comfortable with what you're doing. And if
Right.
you're not comfortable, then other people can't be comfortable with it.
Yeah, and it might not
So,
be for you.
Yeah.
It's not something you feel comfortable with. You're kind of forcing yourself to do
Yeah.
it for some outside reason. It might not actually be
Yeah,
what you're meant to be doing.
right. Yeah. So I don't know if that's like sort of sidetracked from it, but that'd be my answer to just mental blocks and all that.
Okay. Well, I think that's all the questions that I have. Is there anything else that you want to talk about or anything you want to say?
I'd say as like a closing statement, I guess, to the podcast is make sure to go, check out my music, of course, if you're interested in it. I would definitely check it out. And then, of course, like, my Instagram and all that. Like I said, you can find my content on there. And if you ever want to reach out to me, feel free to, because I have like a lot of followers, but I don't at the same time.
Right.
So like my following is like small enough that I can still like respond to people pretty quickly and I can still like have conversations with people. And I think that's something cool too, is like, if I do get big, I might not be able to do that,
Right.
but I can do that now. And so I think that's something that's cool about being an underground artist is that you can still connect with your fans,
Yeah.
in a deep way. So I'd say, yeah, follow my Instagram. If you're interested in my music, make sure to listen to it. Like I said, Apple Music, Spotify, Amazon Music, whatever streaming service you have, I'm sure it'll be on there. And other than that, I mean, just, I'm a just take it easy here in Southbury. And, it's a pleasure being on here. And I definitely think that it's been a good interview. And I like the questions that you gave me too, because they made me think a little bit.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I try to be a little thought provoking.
yeah, yeah,
But I'm really glad that you're here. Well, I'm glad you're here with us for the weekend, but I'm glad that we're able to do this in person because it's really cool. And
Yeah.
it's not, I don't interview a lot of people in person.
right, yeah,
So it's kind of a rare occasion
Yeah.
kind of thing. So yeah.
all
Well,
right.
thank you for being here. And I'm sure we'll hear from you again,
Mhm.
in the future. And all of his socials and everything and links where you can find music will also be in the description of this episode. And do you have a YouTube?
I do. It's not really like, it's kind of in a stage where I haven't I sort of neglected it a little bit. But I'll definitely get to it at some point. I'll sort of fix it up a little bit and I'll get my songs on there so that people that don't have those streaming services, they can still listen to it.
Yeah.
I'll definitely get that taken care of soon. So stay tuned for that. And if you follow my Instagram, I'll be making updates on there so that you can sort of stay in touch with me on there. Yep.
Sounds great. All
there you
right.
go.
Well, thanks for being here and thank you all for watching.
See you later.
Check us out on YouTube at Rhea Higgs, ReaHagues. You can also keep up with us on Instagram at Just the Who Podcast and Facebook at Philology.